within the North Carolina Attorney General's office that is being led currently by Josh Stein. I will obviously introduce you all and start us off. Ian Mance, attorney with Emancipate NC, that's IANMANCE, will go into detail about some of the cases and the issues that we believe are deeply troubling about the work of Josh Stein, and how we hope that by bringing these issues to light, we can engage with Attorney General Stein in a way that helps him improve the outputs from his office and better align with the expectations of the people. And then lastly, we'll hear from Sierra Cobb, that is CIERRACOBB, who is a directly impacted person that works with Emancipate NC as an organizer, who will speak to not just the legal implications of some of Josh Stein's decision-making during his tenure, but also speak to the way that those decisions deeply impact and directly impact. Lastly, I will come back to you all and discuss some specific changes, that we'd like to see. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ian to start us off.
Thanks, Elizabeth, I'm hearing feedback on my end. I don't know, it sounds like a few people might not be muted. There's a way, if anyone is not muted, if you wouldn't mind just muting your microphone. I'm getting a lot of distortion back. Thank you. So, as Dawn said, my name is Ian Mance. I'm a staff attorney at Emancipate, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about the letter we released today. And this letter is not so much about any one particular case or any one particular issue as much as it is about our concern about a general trend in the way that the AG's office has approached what we regard to be critical issues of justice, often critical issues of racial justice. We are in touch with many attorneys around the state and have heard them voice frustration about the AG's criminal division in particular. There's a sense that they will reflexively defend any conviction almost regardless of the facts. There's a sense of distress that we have to fight with an attorney general who has positioned himself as the candidate of racial justice on issues like race discrimination in jury selection and the death penalty. Fortunately, the Supreme Court has rejected his office's arguments in many of these most important cases. But part of our reason for sending the letter now is to encourage Mr. Stein to examine the way that his office is approaching cases that implicate civil rights and liberties. And we're doing it now early in his second term, because in 4 years, we'd like it if he could look back and say that here are some cases where we drew a line, where we exercised our prosecutorial discretion in ways that help to promote the best police and prosecutorial practices. That can mean saying that we will not defend what the officer or prosecutor did in this case, even if it may mean giving up a conviction. Drawing those lines are a critical part of turning the tide on some of the practices that we know are at the root of many of the inequities in the criminal system. It's probably more impactful to dismiss a case than to even bring a successful civil suit. If police and prosecutors know that they have an AG's office that will scrutinize their record, not hesitate to decline to defend a conviction in the event of misconduct, then they're going to be much less likely to engage in it. When you look at things like race discrimination in jury selection, until very recently, we had never had a case in 100 attempts where a court had upheld a challenge in the decade since Batson, which is the seminal case on jury selection. And as we said in the letter, this could not have happened but for an AG's office, both Mr. Stein's and his predecessors, either turning a blind eye to this, excusing it, or not being engaged enough to catch it when it happens. Alabama courts identified and reversed, I think, 80 convictions where it occurred during the same time period. So we know these issues continue even today in the courts. Mr. Stein just chaired a commission about it, and he made a commitment to fighting these sorts of inequities. And that commission is something that people at Emancipate have engaged with. That report that they issued says things like juvenile life without parole is cruel and is racially discriminatory. And yet the AG's office has continued to pursue virtual life sentences in court, and it is currently seeking reversal of a Court of Appeals case that invalidated the sentence as unconstitutional. We would like the Attorney General not to revive practices like that and to exercise his discretion to do justice. You know, we worry what it would have meant if the state Supreme Court hadn't rejected his arguments in these important cases involving jury selection, the death penalty. On the Racial Justice Act cases, there could be dozens of people currently facing execution with no way to challenge what we all know is a real problem with race discrimination, the way that the death penalty has been administered in this state. In some cases, the positions that his office has advocated would have foreclosed relief for people in critical issues, things that might really make a difference, for example, in bringing to light a wrongful conviction or an abuse of law like racial profiling or an illegal search. In other cases, we've been more troubled by the fact that he didn't get involved. There's been one situation after another in Alamance County, people getting beaten and tear gassed by police on their way to the polls. And it's frustrating and it's confusing for people to hear him condemn it on one hand, but then hear him dispute on the other that he has any authority to do anything about it. Even in cases that seem obvious, like the Ronnie Long case, which is now regarded as a wrongful conviction, where you had multiple federal judges saying this guy is innocent, this is egregious police misconduct, the office of the Attorney General defended the case to the bitter end. So there just seems to be a disconnect between his statements on a number of issues and the spirit of the task force work and the actions of many attorneys who work for and represent him. Our letter identifies some specific instances, as well as some things that we think that he could do to address this dissonance and start to give people confidence that he's sensitive to the power that he has to affect a lot of these issues, for better or for worse, and that he's committed to using his discretion to push us in the direction of a more just and equitable system. And I'll now pass it over to Sierra.
Morning, my name is Sierra Cobb. I am an organizer and advocate for Emancipate NC. We are standing in solidarity this morning to ask the Attorney General Josh Stein to address concerns from the community leaders, and other advocates. The silence from the Attorney General's office with the mishandling of the COVID-19 in the jails and prisons was disheartening, to say the least. I myself had called the Attorney General's office to express concerns of the conditions inside the prisons with no response. Families are writing and calling Emancipate, begging and pleading with us to save their loved one who is incarcerated because they're afraid of dying alone. As an advocate, watching another advocate in a higher position, the authority to take action against claims of wrongful conviction, juvenile life without parole, harsh and unfair sentencing. Attorney General, 54% of wrongful convictions are a result of police and prosecutorial misconduct. As the spouse of a man currently incarcerated in North Carolina, watching my husband and our children suffer behind the unjust proceedings of the criminal justice system has left us with many sleepless nights and scrambling to find post-conviction relief, which has been very stressful. Attorney General has the power to eradicate many of these problems in our communities and that is tearing our families apart in North Carolina. The tough on crime approach does not work, Attorney General. That approach has cost taxpayers millions and millions of dollars towards funding mass incarceration and families being ripped apart. The people have to know and trust that the Attorney General will be a true example of a true and just justice system and knows what it looks like. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Donna.
Now that we've heard the specific concerns of Emancipate NC and how those concerns directly impact people who are justice involved, families who are justice involved, we want to offer some suggestions. This press conference and the reason that we are releasing this letter is not just to cause attention to be brought to some of the unjust acts that we have seen from the Attorney General office, but it is also to extend a branch of assistance to help our Attorney General Josh Stein get to a place with his office that matches his rhetoric and his words. It is not enough for him to be a civil rights advocate in words alone. We need to see him use the power that he has with the office that the people of North Carolina have given him to exact and bring about the changes that we want to see. Right now, all of us and this conference itself is being presented in the shadows of the George Floyd murder case. And to be clear, maybe if in Minnesota, community members and the Attorney General there had taken seriously his role of holding law enforcement officers accountable for bad acts, protecting the civil and human rights of the people of North Carolina, maybe George Floyd wouldn't be dead right now. And maybe we wouldn't be watching another trial of a law enforcement officer who very likely will be found to be grossly negligent and a murderer, but also to have been allowed to grow into that murderous position because he has gone unchecked with no accountability from people that have the power to hold him and others like him accountable. We are asking Attorney General Stein to dismiss appeals of convictions based on prosecutorial misconduct and law enforcement misconduct. On the task force, Attorney Stein indicated, along with many others in this community, that there is a lack of accountability for bad prosecution and for bad law enforcement officers. Yet his office has not found one case in which an officer or a prosecutor has abused the trust of the people. We find that unacceptable, and the incongruency between those words and his actions show. We want him to take this opportunity to eliminate that incongruency and show us with his actions that he believes in his own words. Next, we would like to see the Attorney General's office investigate fully claims of innocence. This is no longer the time to subjugate that responsibility, the responsibility of correcting state wrongs, to outside entities or nonprofit organizations. That is the role and the job of the people's attorney. We expect to see you do that. We also would like to see a working group created that includes both internal and external stakeholders to discuss and advise on the implications that pursuing an appeal of a case may have on long-term impacts of civil rights, racial, and social justice issues. That means we want you to be intentional and deliberate about deciding which cases further the cause of justice and which cases have the potential of hindering justice for those folks who are already marginalized and already have a disproportionate amount of power in a terribly biased criminal justice system. Again, these are principles that we have seen Attorney General Josh Stein speak eloquently about believing in and wanting to protect. Today, Emancipate NC is asking you to make your deeds match your words. Show the people of North Carolina who put their trust in you that you not only believe in equity, in racial justice, but that you put that belief into action by bringing real stakeholders from all avenues, both inside and out, to the table to create reports that you can share with the community about why you chose a case or why you chose to decline. This level of transparency is important, and it is necessary to moving beyond mere rhetoric of words towards action. Lastly, and most importantly at this point, because this case is currently pending, we want to see Attorney General Josh Stein abandon the appeal of LWOP for juveniles, or what amounts to LWOP for juveniles. This is a case, and this is a situation where you are on the wrong side of history. No one, none of the science or people inside of the civil rights community, the criminal justice community, no one believes anymore that children are disposable. Children do not make lifelong mistakes. Children should not spend their entire lives in prison. And it is unimaginable that our Attorney General believes that children should spend their lives in prison. Withdraw this appeal. Stand up for what you believe in. Be more than rhetoric. Show us your commitment to what is right through your deeds. Be intentional and deliberate with the power that the people have given you to change this corrupt system, make it better, and make it fair. Thank you. At this point, we will take any questions. We aren't seeing any, okay. We aren't seeing any questions from the press. Excuse me. Gary Robertson's asked, have you attempted to speak with AG Stein about these concerns before writing in the letter? As we mentioned in the letter, there have been many, many attorneys from our community who have had these similar conversations with him to no avail. We felt like it was necessary to make these concerns public, to put this call to action out publicly. And we are always open to sitting down with AG Stein and are hopeful that he will reach out to us to sit down and have a conversation about the best way to move forward so that he can course correct and be the AG he promised the people he would be. So I'm seeing no more questions. Oh, excuse me. Has the recommendations from the task force been moved to be implemented? They are currently working their way through implementation. The task force, as I understand it, has moved into implementation phase, and we are hopeful that we will see some progress come out of it. But what this is about today, this press conference is about today, is the power that Josh Stein has to use his office in a way that is intentional and deliberate about eradicating racial injustices from our criminal justice system.
Older, 85% had some degree of deficiency, 43% had severe or very severe deficiency. Elderly adults are less likely to get sun exposure.
Okay, can we get him to reduce jails on COVID again? I'm not sure that Josh Stein has much, as the AG, has much to do with jails. But what he can do is make sure that every citizen in North Carolina has the opportunity to be treated fairly and humanely, no matter where they are. Again, he is the attorney's people, and we want to, he is the people's attorney, excuse me. And we want to see him embrace that, not just with words, but also with deeds. Thank you so much for coming. Please visit emancipatennc.org, where you can find the full letter and the press release. And shortly, we will have the recording of this press conference available for anyone to view. Thank you again for coming, and you all have a great day.